guess I'll talk about 3 comic books that I read in between this episode and the last one. So, right off the bat, going back to DC, which for the moment has the edge over Marvel in quality, but barely. They got one great story in World's Finest, and then every now and then you'll get a few others here and there. Superman sometimes has some good moments in his titles. But coming out of, believe it or not, Mark Waid, the other title that he's taken on with Dan Mora is Shazam, now known as The Captain. Still known as Shazam, but The Captain. And also in this issue went ahead and said that Mary Marvel is now called Mary Marvel, not Mary Shazam. So that's so, and of course, I guess they can claim that. I don't think they could ever do her own title or anything like that. But I mean, they could still call him Captain Marvel as long as it's within. They couldn't use it as a title. But yeah, it's all very stupid. But what are you going to do? But overall, this title is not on par with World's Finest, but it's not bad. And of the 3, I'm already going to go ahead and spoil it. This is the best one of the 3 that I have to review here. And it maintains its childlike nature, which is key to Captain Marvel. It was very much a child's superhero story from the beginning, and there was an awful lot of sometimes even like fairy tale elements to the story. In a lot of ways, when DC sued it out of existence, some of those elements were transferred over to Superman. I still call him Mixelplick, but Mick says Piddleick. I mean, Piddleick, come on. Could have easily been a character for Captain Marvel, but then that becomes a part of Superman. And then just all the weird, and that went on into Batman as well, the strange science fiction stories that were just bizarre and weird, rather than just being science fiction or what have you. But anyway. So it's a fun title and a lot of potential there, and you have hokey characters like the talking dinosaur visiting them and all that, and it's sort of a subplot at this point. But the problems that Billy is already facing is already pretty much revealed. It's the gods that his powers are based upon. They're not pleased with how he is utilizing the power that he has. And so they're taking over and trying to teach him a lesson or of some sort. And most of their attempts hasn't happened or hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to. And so now Atlas takes over, and he seems to be the rougher of the bunch. And but there's even some humorous moments in it where Hercules takes a jab at Atlas, because this is from the actual myth, where Hercules needed... what was it? Oh, that apple or something like that. I can't even remember that he needed, but only Atlas knew where it was or something like that. So he agreed to hold up the universe on his back, which is what Atlas was condemned to doing. He's actually a Titan rather than one of the Olympian gods. But anyway, went and did it, and then Hercules tricked him into taking back the universe onto his shoulders. And so you got to conclude that Atlas is, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So, but anyway, he's in control of Billy, and it's, oh no, things are afoot and all of that. So, of course, it's a continuing story and whatnot, but the art is really good. And it's an intriguing plot line. And but it's still kind of, the jury's out on whether just how good this series is. There's been a lot of attempts on Captain Marvel, the real one, now known as Shazam, and most of them end in failure. And it's unfortunate and rather sad, But and this one will probably end. It might have a good run, and then a new team comes on and doesn't know what to do and runs it in the ground. That's kind of how these things work out these days, and that might be the case here as well. But hopefully, this will be the beginning of a good run for it. But anyway, of the three, yes, it is the best one. So, second one is the top title. For Marvel, that being Moon Knight, as far as superhero comics go, although I think Hulk is giving it a run for its money. And especially in this issue, I went through the Hulk issues, the first three, I believe, and enjoyed them. And of course, they're kind of two different genres. Hulk's going more into the horror vein, although there's a lot of horror elements to Moon Knight, too. So, I don't know. They each got their own takes to it. But this one is another one of these where they go into someone's mind. So the whole thing, a dream, but I guess if you died in the dream, you die for real, or that kind of the typical rules there. I'm not a big fan of those. There's some things like Doctor Strange and whatnot where you expect that. Certainly Professor X and that sort of thing. But it's just, well, this guy has these mental powers, so they inject themselves with his blood, I guess. Him and Hunter Moon. And they go in there and they discover something about the Vibro villain that the Black Spectre has manipulated into this. And, well, they help him cope with his identity. To remember who he really is and all that sort of thing. It's not terrible. It's just, well, they're just phantasms in this fantasy world. And they get this guy to overcome the dark side of himself so that he's no longer under the thrall of Black Spectre. And so it's kind of a filler issue in this plot, you know. And so off they go. They get their little victory. Black Spectre and his crew realize this has happened, and they're waiting to spring their ultimate trap on Moon Knight as they go. Well, lately I've discovered, they've advertised that Moon Knight will die. Spoiler, at the end of this run. They had announced it'd be a new series, and I thought, wow, is this like a spin-off series? Moon Knight's getting another title? No, that'll be a revamp of it, as they're calling it a resurrection of some sort. So what would that mean if this is the same man? Does it mean one of his personalities has perished in this sort of mysticism that goes on in the battle with Black Spectre? One aspect of it, I thought, well, maybe Hunter Moon just takes on the name Moon Knight and becomes the Moon Knight. I would have thought they might do that. But he gets a new look and all this sort of thing. Well, you know, we'll just have to see. But that might just knock it off the rails. That's the way these things go. I don't know. It'll be the same team, I believe. But we'll just have to, I'll give it a shot and see what they do. But I don't know. I'm not thrilled anyway. But it could be wrong. Finally, went back into Wildcats, which, some aspects of it works pretty good. The best character in the story is easily Grifter, Cole Cash. And he's just a comical character. And, I guess there's a comical in the aspects of the charm of the character. And that sort of thing. He's always the guy who comes across as not being that bright, but he really is. And, and people get irritated with him and that sort of thing. And there's the back and forth between the other characters. And it pretty plays out and works fairly well. It's just the most disturbing aspect is what they did to Fairchild. And that is always going to be bothersome. The art is not very good. And coming out of where Wildcats came from, Jim Lee and Travis Terrace do, well, briefly, some really great work on it. And there have been other artists that do pretty good jobs on it. And then some of it, this looks like perhaps, I don't know. Well, it's had quite a few issues by now, so I don't know if I can always say that, wow, they really rush him out or something and the guy can't finish or whatever. I don't know, but In some panels, you almost got it, but not quite. It doesn't look that great. And this issue had Batman in it, and they're having a little tour of DC characters, basically, as they're in trouble and all of that. But ultimately, none of the Wildstorm characters work in DC. I hold to that, and I think that's always going to be the case. And I think they really they need to separate them out. It's interesting because there was this magical mystery tour of the multiverse that Grifter did. And I kind of thought, well, there's your out. He discovers this, and he did. There were other universes where there were different versions of him and stuff. And he said, oh, the old Wildstorm universe would still exist, and just do that. And your DC versions get wiped out. Or they discover the big secret was they don't belong there. Something along those lines. DC really just needs to just go back to the templates of, yes, some of your lines didn't exist in the same universe. And you can do specials where they meet like they used to, or the Justice League would meet the Justice Society and stuff like that, because it worked. And the rest of it, the main tier of your Justice League characters and whatnot, that's your main universe. And people who enjoy a Wildstorm comic, well, they know the parameters there. And the same thing with Captain Marvel and his crew. They had their own world, and it worked better that way. And I think that's where they need to go. But I guess it doesn't matter at this point since it's too late. But then again, something like that might get some amount of excitement for them to return. But certain limitations can be a good thing on your story structures here, and with not having just stupid guest stars things all the time just for the sake of doing it, and to the detriment of both entities. So you got Batman just sort of there, oh look, he's Batman and all that, and then oh, the Wildcats are there too, and so so anyway, yeah, Shazam for the win on these three, and Moon Knight, and Wildcats. Well, it has its moments, but yeah, it came in last this time around.